Yeah, so if not, please install today, right? So let's install MySQL so that you will not have uh, any compatible problems, right? So whatever the code we're gonna return, it will run as is for you, right? So if you want to use some other database, right, that is fine. You can change that later, right? You can like for now you just start with MySQL. Later you can if you want to play with Oracle or something else, you can change it, right? So for our intention is like we need one RDBMS, and so we are going with MySQL. Right? Lightweight, MySQL is lightweight, and yeah, we can play with this. Okay. Yes. So JDBC, this is there for so many years in the Java world, right? There is nothing new. So from our Java application, there are multiple technologies are present in the in our day-to-day application, right? So we have systems where the HTML and all will work. Like consider this as mobile. Okay, I don't have mobile in this, so that's why I'm just taking this some diagram, right? So this is going to be your PC and mobile, right? So here in your PC, when you open browser, so we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? So some etc. etc. So when it goes to mobile, it's going to be Mac or Android, right? Very famous, right? Android. So so this is how the things are there, right? So your from your on your browser, these technologies will work, and on your mobile and on mobile, Android or uh, Mac, what we call Mac language. Um, not able to read color, right? So Mac for it's different. It's not Android. So for iPhone, it's a different language. It's not Android. So that particular language will be executed on the iPhone mobiles. So when you send the request, it reaches to the server. Side technologies are different. So as we are learning Java, so for now we can consider Java is one, right? Java is one out of other server side technology. So we have Java, Node.js, .NET, PHP. Okay, all these are server-side technologies. So these days, the latest UI technologies are like Angular and React, JS, right? So something like this. There are some other technologies available, but these are just frameworks, JavaScript frameworks. The underlying um, core library is JavaScript only. Like how we are thinking, learning Spring, right? Spring is a framework, but the underlying actual language technology is Java only, right? Whatever it is, it can be a Spring or it can be a Kafka or it can be some Spring Boot, right? Or some other thing. It's fine, right? All these technologies will be running on top of Java only. The underlying library, the actual core library is Java. The same applicable for JavaScript also. It can be a Angular or React or Vue.js, anything is fine, but the underlying library is JavaScript only, the core library. Right? Instead of writing huge data, we can write less code, more functionality, right? So we can write less code and more functionality. That's why we are learning framework. The same concept applicable here also. The Java Spring Boot. There it is JavaScript, Angular, React. Okay. So Java is a server-side technology. So from here we goes to some SQL or no SQL. Let's focus on SQL, right? So these are DBMS, right? So database. So here we store our uh, data. At permanent storage purpose, we use RDBMS. All these are different layers and different technologies will work on different uh, areas, right? Relational database management system or DBMS, right? So SQL is a language will be executed on the backend, right? So it can be an Oracle or it can be MySQL. There are so many vendors out there. How we have Java, .NET like that. There are so many vendors, right? MySQL, Oracle, different companies have different implementations. IBM has DB2, Sun Microsystem, MySQL, Oracle. From Oracle now both MySQL and Oracle from Oracle only. So we have SQL Server from Microsoft. Like each and every company has its own relational database, right? So IBM has DB2, Microsoft has SQL Server, right? So these people has their own RDBMS versions. So these are different implementations. The basic is SQL, right? So we use database for sure, right? For transaction management purpose to store the information, right? We do use the database. So when we store the information in the database, right, from our Java application, we do process like save, update, delete, right? So it will be like this. So you get a request to create a profile. So you send that information to the database. The data will be stored in the database. So when the customer wants to see his profile information, if he doesn't get full call, so we just send that ID, right, customer ID, and we get the data and we give it to the friend. So this is what it happens, right? Mostly we store the data, we retrieve the data, we update the data, we delete the data. So this is what we do, right? And this is what is an internal communication between Java and database, right? So all these things, like for example, if you try to execute a HTML code on JVM, will that work? If you're trying to render a UI page, can you able to do that? Or else will you able to execute a Java code on the browser by using DOM? Like who is going to execute
No,
HTML?
JSP also we can do it.
Yeah, I will answer that question. Okay, so DOM will render HTML. So JavaScript engine, right? JavaScript engine renders JavaScript. So we also have CSS engine to render CSS. So Java will be executed on top of JVM. So it's a Java engine. So we have SQL engine to execute SQL code. So when you are trying to execute one technology in another area, for example, you are trying to render HTML in Java, right? HTML in Java. So in Java, Java will consider that HTML as a string. So it's a plain string because Java cannot understand HTML, right? Java cannot understand HTML. I will answer your question, Anshu. I'll just park your question for a couple of minutes. Once I explain these things, I will let you know what is JSP process. Okay. Yes. So so only DOM can understand HTML language. Only JS engine can understand JavaScript. Only CSS engine can understand CSS. Like only JVM can understand Java code, right? Only JVM can understand Java. So whenever you write some query, right? So but whereas the Java, our SQL engine cannot understand Java code, and it's the vice versa, right? JVM cannot understand SQL code. So if you write some query, select start from table, right? Mobile, right? Select start from mobile. In Java, it is a plain string. It doesn't bother about syntax, right? If you do any typo mistakes, nothing, right? There is no error because in Java, it is a plain string object. Java doesn't know anything about SQL. It cannot understand what is a select start from table because it is not a Java language, right? It's a SQL language. So this string will become powerful, right? This string will become powerful when it goes into an SQL engine. When this string goes into an SQL engine, then display its major role. But when it is coming to Java, it's a simple string only, right? It's a simple string. So how can we create a bridge, right? How can we Java understand, right? Because these two are two different technologies. Java is different, SQL is different, right? So SQL has its own data type, Java has its own data types, right? SQL executes the query and generates some result, and how can we send that in result to the Java? And when there is an error thrown in SQL, how can we convert that SQL exception, right, SQL error, into a Java exception, right? So this entire process, right? This entire process is going to be happen in an API called JDBC. Without JDBC, Java cannot connected to the database. It can be Hibernate, DataJP, or whatever it is. The underlying framework, the underlying architecture is going to be JDBC, right? It's going to be JDBC. Who takes care about sending the queries to the database and converting the query result, right? SQL response into a Java response, right? Who is going to convert an SQL exception into a Java exception? all these things are going to be taken care by JDBC API. Without JDBC API, Java cannot connect it to the database engine, right? So Java cannot understand what is database. Java can understand only database results just because of JDBC. Okay, as I'm saying for a couple of times, it is an API, right? So what is an API? Java provides set of interfaces. That's it, right? Java specify, okay, these are the interfaces you have to implement, right? Who is going to implement? The database vendors, right? So when MySQL wants to give support to the database, like when MySQL wants to give support to the Java, right? Already it's the database, right? So when MySQL wants to give support to the Java, then MySQL has to implement this JDBC. If Oracle wants to give support to Java, then Oracle has to implement this JDBC. The same thing is applicable for DB2. The same thing is applicable for SQL Server, right? So tomorrow there might be some other new database vendor is coming into the market, right? Like Postgre, like some other vendor is coming. Then they must provide implementation for JDBC API to give support to the Java. So if they don't provide implementation to the JDBC API, their database will not be communicated from Java, right? So to get the information from the SQL or to communicate to any database, we will be using an API. So we are lucky, Java guys, we are lucky. We're gonna learn the specifications of API, JDBC API. We don't look into the how MySQL is implemented, that how Oracle is implemented, that how DB2 is implemented, that doesn't matter for us, right? We call the method. I want a connection from the database. We call get connection, right? You call some method get connection, then automatically you will get the connection. So how the connection is going to come, you don't need to worry. That is going to be taken care by the MySQL people, right? So MySQL people implemented this JDBC API, so you don't need to worry, right? So the same thing, how the like when you send a HTTP request from the browser, like how the HTTP request, raw HTTP request is converting into the servlet request and servlet response, right? We are not worrying because of servlet API, right? So because of servlet API, it's an API. It's a simple like couple of interfaces, right? Couple of interfaces and classes. So it's an API. Who is going to provide implementation for that API? It's a server, right? Server. So you don't need to worry how the request, raw HTTP request will be converted into a servlet request Java object, how the raw servlet response object will be converted into how the servlet response object will be converted into HTTP response. So you don't need to worry about all those things. Those things are going to be taken care by the servers, right? It's a Tomcat, WebLogic, WebSphere, right? Jetty, Netty, there are so many servers are there. At Jersey, there are so many servers are there. So that is headache for the servers. So as a developer, you should learn the servlet API and you should understand. Okay, when I use this code in the Java, right? When I use this code in Java, what will happen? You will get a servlet object created. Servlet request object is created. Actually, I send a HTTP request on the browser. It will be converted into a Java object. So it's going to be taken care by my servlet API implementer, right? So it's going to be obviously your server, So without server, your HTTP request will not be converted into a servlet request, right? So it's the concept for Spring Boot also. It's again a dispatcher servlet. It's a servlet, right? So how the dispatcher servlet is getting a request header, request parameter, query parameter, right? So all those things, how they are happening just because of our server. So the same concept applicable for like here also JDBC, right? Here also the same concept is applicable. So you just learn the JDBC API, right? You just learn the JDBC API. So you no need to worry how the things are going to be work in the background. So it's going to be purely taken care by MySQL, right? So this is nothing related to Spring. Whatever we are discussing now is there in Java itself. It's part of our basic core Java itself. Nothing related to Spring. Okay. So first you understood, right? I mean, you must understood what is JDBC API, why we need JDBC API. Okay. So it's a purely purpose to connect it to the database. So without JDBC API, right? No technology. can be Hibernate or Ibates or Data JPA, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, underlying architecture, underlying system is still JDBC API. So I'm again repeating, it's an API. We're gonna learn that API. So it's going to be implemented. The corresponding implementation is going to be done by corresponding database vendor, right? So yeah, so now we created some table, right? Okay, let me answer Anshuman question, right? So what is saying? Okay, we have a JSP, so we can send an HTML, right? HTML. So in case of JSP, what is going to happen? Let me tell you. Okay, so you might be writing some JSP file, right? Java server pages, right? Java server pages. So actually, this JSP page will be converted into a servlet. Okay. So who is going to convert that? It's part of your server, right? So we have a JSP engine, right? Your server has a JSP engine. For example, Tomcat, we call that as Jasper. Okay. In Tomcat, we call that as Jasper. Okay. So this JSP engine will convert your JSP into a servlet page. And whatever the HTML content you are keeping inside this JSP page, right? Whatever the HTML content you are keeping inside this JSP page, that is going to be some string data. It's going to be a simple string. Java doesn't know anything about HTML. So your HTML complete content, right? So you do write nicely, right? You do write HTML tag and head tag, body tag, and you do write some header tag, some blah blah blah. Right? Nothing. Our Java can understand. Java will consider that as a simple HTML, simple HTML. So this is what it happens when we use JSP pages, right? So from your browser, you send the request. Okay. From your browser, you send the request. Okay. And your browser will prepare some HTTP request, right? Your browser will prepare some HTTP request. It's a raw HTTP request. It goes to the server. Once it goes into the server, right? So server, it goes to mapping like web.xml file. Inside web.xml file, this mapping will be there, and it goes to servlet, and that HTML request will be converted into servlet request, right? So it's going to be servlet. So from servlet, our dispatcher servlet, when you return a simple string, right? So let's jump into the dispatcher servlet now. When you return a simple string, it goes to view resolver, right? View resolver, and it identifies some JSP, right? View resolver will identify some JSP. So this JSP page will be rendered, right? It has a life cycle. Okay, so as part of life cycle, this JSP will be converted into a servlet. Okay, it's again a servlet. It will be converted automatically by JSP engine, right? So JSP to servlet conversion is going to be automatically taken care by JSP engine. Inside JSP, whatever HTML code you are going to write, that is going to be a string, a simple string, and it does some execution, right? You do write some for loops inside JSP, and you write some regular expressions. All those will be evaluated. At last, it will generate some huge string, right? Some MBs in string content, HTML content. Right? It's a huge HTML content. It is nothing but a huge memory, right? Huge, uh, big string object. It's going to be a big string object will be stored in huge memory, and finally that is going to be converted. The huge HTML content, right? In Java, it's a plain string, will be converted into a raw HTTP request. That is going to be your server response. Your server will convert that into your raw HTTP response. So once that HTML, right, this response comes to the browser, that HTML will be rendered by the DOM. You are able to see. Okay, so this is what it's happening. This is one of the reasons why people coming out of the JSP. JSP is heavyweight. It consumes lot of resources in our server. Okay, it's a huge process. converting JSP into servlet, and when you generate a huge HTML content, it gonna consumes huge memory in the server, right? You need uh, a big resource like very huge RAM servers, right? Like, so more JSP, more memory consumption, then more like big systems we needed. That is the reason why people are coming out of this JSP. Okay, so it's a huge life cycle. Anyway, it's almost kind of deprecated. Now no application is using this. If they want to use, they will put like very lightweight, very few. Okay, in the olden days we used to have this kind of flow, right? JSP converting into servlet. Again, that is, we generate a huge HTML content. It's a raw string, right? Raw string will be kept in a server response object, and that response will be converted into HTTP response and will be flashed to the browser. Once browser receives the response, it will start rendering it, right? So this HTML, if it has any errors, right? So some kind of problem, then JSP or Java will not worry about it, because in Java it's a raw string. Okay, if we think like JSP is directly executing in the Java in the server, no, server will generate a final HTML response. Finally, before coming to the browser, it's going to be raw HTML response or JavaScript or CSS. That is what our browser can understand. If you send Java, browser will display like a plain text. Okay, if you send some Java file, browser will display like a plain text. That's it. It won't render. It will consider, oh, it's some text. It's some text. How HTML is being considered in Java. Like that, Java also will be considered in our DOM engine. Okay. Yeah. Did I answer your question, Anshu?
Yes, sir. Got it.
Okay. It's not only for Anshuman, it's for everybody. It's like very high level kind of picture what will happen when we use JSPs. Okay. Why the really why these companies are coming out of the JSP, right? Because it's heavy weight. It consumes so much memory in the server side. It's not that much easy. It looks like a simple tag in JSP consumes huge memory at server side, right? So JSPs are really avoidable. That's why the complete world is coming out of JSPs. Okay, that's why all old projects are migrating to Angular React. You might be thinking, why all of a sudden? Because they can reduce their maintenance costs if they migrated into Angular and React, because those are front-end technologies, right? So if it is a JavaScript or Angular or something, so it will be executed at your browser side itself, right? So if any memory needs to be consumed, it will be consumed on client machine, right? It will be executed here, so no server resources required. So all your Angular code, all your uh, React code, all your Vue.js or HTML or CSS, whatever it is, when they are rendering on the browser, right, client machine, if they need any memory, they will consume from client machine, right, client machine. So Angular React will work at a browser side, not at client side, right, server side. So our servers will process only uh, only the JSON response or XML response, right? That's the reason why now these these huge changes are happening. Okay, so now server is no more view part. It's only for pure services oriented, right? It can be a .NET, it can be a Java, it can be whatever it is. They're gonna talk purely service oriented these days, right? No JSPs, no view part at all. It's going to be pure service oriented. So we will return a pure service response, JSON or XML. That is going to be rendered by the Angular framework. And the Angular will execute only on the browser. So if any memory needs to be consumed, they will consume the client machine. And obviously, our servers can process more number of requests, because they are this particular part we deleted, right? So this particular part we deleted, which consumes more memory. So we need lightweight servers, right? So our requirement for our Java, we can process by using Tomcat, Netty, like lightweight servers. We don't need huge server. So that is one of the reason why people are moving towards microservices, right? So we can use embedded servers, embedded Tomcat servers to process our, okay. But anyway, this is a different concept. I just want to make you to understand why Angular is booming, React is booming, why we are coming out of the JSP, what will happen when we use. But let's come back. Today's session is JDBC, right? We are going to connect it to the data. Connect it to the data. Okay, so let's go through a couple of important interfaces and classes, okay, in the JDBC API. So first of all, at very high level, what we're gonna do from our Java application, first we need to get the database connection, right? Java, right? We need to get the connection. So once you get the connection, we send the query, right? We send some query where the SQL engine can understand, right? If it is, I mean, depends upon query, what query we are sending. For example, if you are sending some select query, right? Select query, then you will get response, right? The result back. If you send some update query, if it is select query, right? Select, you will get a result back. If it is an update query, right? You get how many number of rows are impacted due to that update query. Update query. Okay. And if it is some DML query, then you get nothing, right? You get nothing. So like create table, alter table, mostly we don't do that from Java. We will be writing, we will be sending the direct script to the database team, right? So anyway, this section won't be there. So this is going to be update query, right? Update query. You get how many number of rows are impacted, and if it is some DDL, database definition language, right? So create, drop, or alter, right? So these kind of queries you will not get anything, right? So kind of true false like boolean, yeah, we will get some boolean. So it's a kind of true false, whether it's successfully executed or not. True means it's processed successfully, false means the processing. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do at very high level. It's very simple. First you get the connection, you send the query, right? Send the query. If the query is select query, you get the result back. If the query is an update query, you get the how many number of rows are impacted due to the query execution. If it is a DDL query, then you will come to know whether the DPL query is processed or not, right? So there is one more section will come in between, right? So you cannot execute the query directly. Once you get the connection, you need to open some session, right? You need to open some session. How much time we need that connection kind of thing. So that session in JDBC we call statement or prepared state, right? So you can't directly send the query. We will be sending the query to statement or prepared statement, or all these are interfaces. So no or callable statement. Okay, callable statement. So statement and prepare statement both are same. Okay, but mostly we will be using prepare statement. Mostly we will be using prepare statement in the real world. Okay, callable statement is for stored box. Some stored procedures we can write at our database side. So it's like huge query we will be writing. So we will be execute that stored part, but we will be not like we will not touch the callable statement. Okay, in my um, like total life, like in this I mean in this many years of experience, I never worked on any stored part. So anyway, we will not be going to them. Right? Sport procs, I don't know why people write that, because the people who are good at queries and they do some processing at the database side. I don't know what is the reason. Maybe it has good benefits. So that's my some companies will be using, but it is legacy now, right? No companies are using stored procs now. It's very rare cases where we use stored procs. But anyway, we will be not learning callable statement or statement. The real time in Java mostly we will use prepared statement, right? So this is what we're going to use, right? Prepared statement. Once the query is processed, make sure you close all this, right? So it's like a kind of process. You just open connection, you just open the session, right? You just open the connection, you just open the session. Once your processing done, close the session and close the connection. So these things you have to make sure. Okay, you have to make sure about these things. Okay, you have to open the connection, open the session, do your process, close your connection, close your session, close your connection, and you are done with the complete process, right? So all these things we have to take care. All these things we have to take care. So the raw JDBC code looks something like this, right? Yeah. So first thing is we need to load the driver class, but anyway that is completely optional from JDK 1.6, right? That's why I think highlight that. Almost all, uh, I mean, like 90% of the Java systems are running with minimum JDK version 1.6 in this one, right? So obviously the driver class will be loaded. Okay. So if it is yeah, if it is excuse me, if it is not JDK 1.6, if it is not JDK 1.6, then we have to load the driver class explicit. If it is not a JDK 1.6, we need to load the driver explicitly. Then you must call class.forName, and you should give the driver class name, right? But it's completely optional. After JDK 1.7, it's completely optional. We are using JDK 1.8, right? For us, it is fully not required. Yes. The next step is opening the connection. Opening the connection. So you need to call driver manager, right? Driver manager dot get connection, right? Driver manager dot get connection, and you should specify where is the database is running. So in the last diagram, right? So all these uh, things, right? Like client, server, database engine, like right now we are learning it's a single computer, that's why all the things are running on a single computer. You are opening the browser, you are starting the server, you are starting the MySQL on your computer, but in the real time the things won't be like this, right? So your service provider, so your service will run on one computer and your database will run on another computer, right? Another computer. So how you can connect from one computer to another computer? By using intranet communication, right? So you should specify where is that database is running, right? You should specify where is the database is running. So that is what is the first argument. Where is the database is running? So in our local practice, in our training purpose, where is our database is running? On our computer, right? It's always going to be local host. It's always going to be local host. But maybe if you are interested, you can try create one MySQL instance on AWS, and you can connect that, right? By that time, you have to use AWS cloud system IP address. So it's simple. It's instead of localhost, it's going to be AWS cloud IP address. So which is nothing but where is the database is running, right? Where is the database is running? So that we will specify on what port, right? What is the host name and what is the port number? So we can connect it to that system, and we can connect it talk to only database, right? So by using URL, we can come to know what is the host name, which is the what is the system, and inside that system on what particular port, right? What port the database is running. The database is running. So by that is going to be resolved by using URL. And every database will have a username and password. So you must provide the username and password to connect it to the right. So there are only simple three parameters. First one is URL. By using URL, you will come to know in this world, right? In this world, where is the database is running. So right now it's a simple system, right? Practicing purpose. So it's going to be local host, but in the real time company, it's not going to be local host. It should be some IP address, right? It should be some IP address. Like your system also will have some IP address. So when your system is running on database and somebody wants to use your database, then they should come through your IP address, right? So that it's the same concept, right? It's the same concept. So we will be using a different IP address, right? So the URL will change from company to company, project to project, mission to mission. That's why we have to pass that dynamically. Of course, username and password also same, right? So different databases will have different usernames and passwords, right? So we need to pass them. So to create a session, statement or prepare statement. So if you want to create a statement, then you should call, right? Once you get the connection, you should call connection dot create statement. Then statement will be created. To prepare the statement, right? To get the prepared statement object from the connection, then you should call connection dot prepare the statement, right? Prepare the statement. So you will get prepared statement object. You will get prepared statement object. And if you want to get a callable session, then you should call connection dot get a callable statement, right? Connection dot callable statement. Then you will get callable statement. And one good thing is I already said all these are APIs, which means connection is an interface, statement is an interface, prepare statement is an interface, right? Where is the implementation then? So interfaces, they are not actually cannot be instantiated, right? So where is the implementation then? The implementation should be in MySQL. Implementation should be in Oracle. So actually, these are SQL providers, right? So what they do, they provide their version specific jar, right? So when you are connecting to MySQL, then you should use MySQL jar. So this jar is going to provide implementation for JDBC API. So connection is an interface. Then where is the implementation? It should be in MySQL jar if you are using MySQL. So tomorrow, if you are connected to Oracle, right? Oracle, then where is this? Where is the connection implementation? It should be in Oracle jar, right? So I don't remember the exact jar file name. It should be some ODBC jar.
OJDBC.
Yeah, ODBC jar or some 14, 17, some different versions we have in the for database, right? So that's why we have different jars. Okay. So even the concept is common for MySQL also. We have different versions for MySQL. Then using different MySQL jars. So it's common for DB2, common for SQL Server, it's common for Postgres also. So make sure which database you are connecting, that corresponding jar you are keeping under class one. If you are connecting to MySQL, then you should keep MySQL jar, and there are multiple versions will be available, right? In MySQL, there are multiple versions will be available. Be very careful, right? So when you are connecting to the database, you are using a proper jar. So that is your developer responsibility, right? So using proper jar, it's a developer responsibility. In Oracle, like Oracle, there are so many versions out there. Oracle 8, 9, Oracle 8, 9C, 10G, 11A, right? 12C, like that. There are so many versions are there. So the jar implementation also will change from version to version. So based on database version, you have to use particular implementer jar, right? So all these are interfaces, connection, statement, result set. The entire implementation is going to present here. So you no need to worry how they implement it. You just call method, right? You just call driver manager that get connection. So you will get the connection. So how do you get the connection? You no need to worry. That is the responsibility of MySQL jar, right? So MySQL people take care about how to provide the connection to the person who called this driver manager that get connection, right? So there is a connection has to be given to the database, right? How we are saying when we send the request from the browser, right? So HTTP protocol, which means that there is a connection is established, right? Via HTTP protocol. Via HTTP protocol, there is a physical connection is established. So through that connection, the data will be transferred, right, in the request and response format, right? So the same concept is applicable here also, right? I think here it is a TCP/IP protocol will be used in the background. Okay, so using TCP/IP protocol, we will establish the connection from Java to database. So by that time, you will use this URL and you get the connection object finally. So you no need to worry how that is implemented. So once you get the connection, get the statement, send some select query, you'll get the result, right? So it's actually a result. So in Java, it's going to be result set object. And once you are done with all these tasks, right? Once you are done with the processing that result, then you have to close the statement. You have to close the connection, close the statement and close the connection. So each and every method, right, in the JDBC API throws one checked exception. Okay, one checked exception called SQL exception. What is a checked exception and unchecked exception? Right? So it has to be, if it is a checked exception, it has to be handled either through throws keyword or try catch, right? Throws keyword or try catch. Until you handle that by using throws or try catch, your code will not be compiled. See, here it is only one line we would like to do, st.close. This is what our target. If it is not null, then do st.close. See, we are wrapping, closing, right? The closing connection we are wrapping. Right, again it's same. I want to close the connection. If the connection is not null, to avoid null pointer exception, we are checking null. Right, connection is not null, then we are closing the connection. Simple. I want to call a close method on the connection. For that, we are writing 5-6 lines. How horrible it is. How rude our Java code is. Just I want to call one method. For that is it is expecting to write 5-6 lines of code. They can do some auto generation, right? So just one line purpose we are writing 6 lines of code. How problematic code it is, right? The simple method I want to call connection.close. For that we are writing around 5-6 lines of code very happily.
And if we miss it, then we are gone.
Yeah. Okay. So this is how at very high level it looks, right? Our Java application, the database application. These two are two different technologies and two different things. We will. This JDBC is a adapter kind of like it behaves it act like an adapter between Java application and your database, right? So this is all about native raw JDBC, right? So actually, this is a prerequisite. These all things you should know before starting to the Spring JDBC, right? Because whatever we discussed, nothing related to Spring. Right? Whatever we discussed, Spring is not in scope till now. It's already there with the Java itself, and this is there for 2 decades, almost for 2 decades, right? JDBC were there in the market for 20 years. So you must know how to get the data, how to open the connection, how to process the result set, how to close the connection, how to close the statement. So just to do a quick recollect, right? I'm just sharing this information, right? So let's see one example, one code example with native JDBC. Spring data, no, it's a Spring JDBC. Here I have the raw JDBC example. Okay, so no Spring support by using plain Java, right? Pure JVM RT or jar itself. We can do this process, but we need to write huge code. It is updating now and dependencies. Okay, so this is how the JDBC code looks like, right? So here is the URL JDBC colon MySQL. So this is a kind of protocol, right? HTTP kind of thing. Then where is this database is running? So it's running on 127.0.01. So this is the IP address which is alternative to localhost. If you write localhost, it's a host name. If you just put 127.0.0.1, it's IP address. Both are same. Okay. So 127.0.01 is an IP address, and whereas the local host is a whereas the local host is a host name, right? So the system can be, system has both, right? IP address and host name. So for one IP address, we can configure multiple host name. That is anyway a networking concept, nothing related to Java, JDBC, or this database, right? So you can use localhost, fine, or you can use IP address. Anything is fine. Okay. Yeah. So let's use localhost. Okay, localhost. Yes. And my database is running on my machine. My database is running 3306 on port number 3306. So while installing, if you would like to change the port number, you can change it. So that is it's up to you, right? So 3306 is the default port of MySQL, right? So MySQL default port is 3306. If you run Oracle, the default port is 1521, right? 1521. So it depends upon what the database you are using, and the default port is each and every database will run on default port. You can run multiple databases. Why we have different ports for different databases? In one machine, you can run MySQL and you can run Oracle also, because those two will run on different ports So they will be considered as two different applications, right? So they will run on two different ports, and uh, they will be considered as two different applications. So right now MySQL is running on my machine, port number 3306. Okay, and we are going to connect it to a schema, right? In the database, the data will be stored in the schema format. So let me open that. Okay, so it will take a while to open it. Yeah, username is root, password is root. I gave default username and password, right? Yeah, I don't store any secure data. That's why I give this one. If you store any secure data, right? So just give good username and password. Okay. Yeah. So here is the schema we're gonna connect. So there are so many that schemas are there. So in this there are multiple tables are there, right? So we will let's fetch the data from country table, right? Select star from country. Yeah, here we have the table. So from this table we're gonna fetch the data, right? So this is what is a URL. So by using this URL we can know where is the database is running, on which system is the database is running, and on the particular system on what particular port the database is running. And the same database, multiple schemas can be there, which schema we are connecting to, right? So all these things we can come to know by looking into that URL. And username and password is root, so default username and default password. So it won't be that much easy in the real time. It will be little secure, right? So especially production database credentials will not be shared with any developer. Yes. So I want to execute this query. Select star from simple, right? Select star from countries. It's a very plain, simple query. Okay. Yeah. Let's do like step by step process. Step by step process. Yeah. So this code I wrote for a particular purpose. Later we will look into it. Yeah, so see, I'm just opening the connection directly. I open the connection directly. Driver manager dot get connection. Driver manager dot get connection. So you will get a connection. Actually, it's an interface, right? So when I put mouse on it, you see I means interface, right? Interface. So it's going to be so the actual implementation we're gonna get it from MySQL jar, right? So MySQL jar. So I should add that jar in the pom.xml file to connect it to MySQL jar. First, we should add the dependency, right? So we are managing dependencies through pom.xml file. So you must add the dependency in the pom.xml. So in my case, it's a MySQL, and the version I have to use 6.0.6. In your case, it won't be safe. I'm using MySQL version 6.0.3, I believe, right? So 6.0.3, 6.3. So that's why I'm using 6.0.6. So if you install the MySQL now today, I think this is installed 2 years before, around 2 years before. That's why you will see all those things. But if it is not latest version, right? Then the jar version will change, right? So it should be same. The jar name will be same most probably. MySQL connector only, but the version alone will change, right? The version alone will change. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So the actual connection will be coming from that jar. Okay. Action connection will be coming from the jar. So you get the connection. You open the session, which is create statement. Right. Set auto commit false. Okay. So you open the connection, execute the query. Once you get the result, right? So this result set has some utility methods to print the data, right? We are executing query. We got the data, right? We got the result back. So we are processing. The result set is not null. I don't know why I wrote this if condition. Never result set will never be null. You get an empty result set. Okay. Yes. So yeah, result set. You get the results here, and finally you extract the data. Right? Extract the data from the result set. So you're gonna print it. You're gonna print it on the console, right? So finally, if is there any exception, you just print the exception. And you have to finally have to close the result set. You have to close the statement. You have to close the connection. So my business logic is this much, right? Around 5 to 10 lines. Closing this connection result set itself is like 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. Fine. So finally, you should properly close all the resources. At least if you are lazy, don't if you don't close statement result sets, it's fine. At least you close the connection properly. Make sure, okay. At least close the connection properly. If you don't close the connections, right, what will happen? Database will throw an exception, right? So it has a limitation. It can't open like millions of connections, right? It has limit, right? So every database has limits. Once we cross the limit, connection, open number of connections cross limits crosses, then database will throw an exception and database will be choked, right? It will be hanging on. So it creates a huge downtime. Okay, so don't do the mistake. It's better to close the connection all the time. It's better to close the connection. So this is how the code looks like. This is how the code looks like. Let's run this code. Let's run this code and see whether we will get the output or not. Right. So it's a simple main method application. No more server. It's simple main method, no Spring, nothing. It's a native Java JDBC application. Right. You got the data, right? So we got the connection. We opened the statement. Got the data printed on the console, right? Let's debug this and see what is the connection implementation class name, right? What is the statement implementation? So all these are interface. Statement is interface, result set is interface, connection is interface, right? So let's debug this application and see what is that implementation class name. Right? So somehow I disabled this. Let's enable, right? So yeah, it was like this. So it's disabled. Let's enable. Yeah, you see the dots. Okay. Now let's right click debug application. So right click debug as Java application, debug as Java application. Let's minimize this. Yeah. So yeah. So wherever you kept the, I mean, wherever you keep the breakpoint, there the flow will be stopping. So to go to the next line, press functional key F6, right? F6. So it go to the next line, next line. So it's like line by line execution. So if you don't remember that, you just click on this button, step over, line by line, right? Step into. So if you want to go inside this method, press F5. You want to jump from one breakpoint to another breakpoint, right? So here we have in between other lines. So you don't want to go line by line. You want to jump directly into another breakpoint. Just press F8, right? Functional key F8. Yeah, so that the breakpoint will be jumping, the flow will be jumping from one breakpoint to another break. Okay, this is for Eclipse. IntelliJ, the things will be little different. Okay, and this is for only for Eclipse and STS, right? Spring Tools. Okay. Yeah, so we executed this code. That one particular line will be getting executed by JVM, and yeah, it will take some time to get the connection, right? Yeah, so you got the connection. You see what is the implementation class name? Connection IMPL. Where it is present? It is present com.mysql.cj.jdbc. cj.jdbc. So this is the actual implementation class, right? For MySQL. If you go and test for Oracle, it will be different, right? The implementation class name will vary from vendor to vendor. So here we are using MySQL. That's why you see MySQL package. Okay, it might be for Oracle. It will be for sure. Okay, but there is one concept, right? Polymorphism, right? Polymorphism. So parent reference variable can hold child class object, right? So that is the secret behind it, right? Connection con equals to driver manager connection. Even though the implementation class, right? It's not actual connection. It's an implementation class, but still the basic oops core fundamental one is the parent class, right? Polymorphism. Parent class should hold all child class objects, right? So parent class reference variable can hold all child class objects. So based on that uh, core law, so we are able to hold these objects, right? Using statement and connection. So you see the actual statement is it's an interface. So at runtime it's going to be a class which implements that statement uh, object, right? So next, it's the same for result set also. Result set is actual an interface. So at runtime, you will get the actual object, right? So yeah, this is the line, right? We are printing some name, country code, district, and some lines of data. So we got the data. We got the data from database, right? We're gonna iterate, right? So rs dot next means how many number of rows are there. So those many times this rs dot next will be executed. For each row, we should get the each column data. So this each iteration while rs dot next, right? Each iteration will it's equivalent to each row in the database, right? So each row is going to be rs dot next. So we are getting that complete row information. We are going for the next row, right? Printing the next row information, right? Next row, yes, that will be right? Line by line, line by line. So it is actually the row, right? It's a row in the database. So those many number of times you're gonna call rs dot next, right? Once it is done, right? So you close the connection and everything is completed. Finally, you're gonna come out of this execution, right? So if is there any exception occurred, then the flow will be getting into print stack phase. So we need to close the connection with exception, without exception. That is the reason why we are using finally block. I hope you know, right? What is finally block? Why we use it, right? The code which we keep inside finally block will always get executed with exception, without exception. So where you see some kind of code which is mandatory to execute, like closing the connection, right? Resource closing, for example, is closing the connection is mandatory with exception or without exception. So instead of keeping this code in the two places, it's better to put it in one place inside finally block, right? So this is all about JDBC API. Okay. And one more thing I would like to show here is let's expand that MySQL jar, right? MySQL jar. So whatever the objects you saw right just now, right? Connection IMPL, statement IMPL, results at IMPL will be there. Those jars are there in this MySQL connector jar, right? So MySQL connector jar, for example, MySQL CI API JDBC. Yeah, not here. JDBC. Okay, what is the package name? Let me check. Connection IMPL. Right? The package is com.mysql.cj.jdbc, not API. cj.jdbc. Scroll down. Here we go, right? Connection. Yeah, so connection cj. Yeah, here we have, right? So connection IMPL. So which implements which implements java.sql.connection, right? So which extends abstract connection. That abstract connection is a child for MySQL JDBC connection, the MySQL JDBC connection, and that MySQL JDBC connection is a child of JDBC connection, right? The connection, the plain connection, where we have API. Yeah, here we have API. So, but it's a like indirect implementation, right? So they have created some hierarchy. So if you just open this JDBC connection, that will be child to java.sql.connection, java.sql.connection. So similarly, we have driver class. So it is a child of which is the child of java.sql.driver, java.sql.driver. And to check, I told right from JDK 1.6 onwards, we no need to load any driver class explicitly. If you keep the jar file, if you keep the driver jar file and the class path, the driver will automatically register, right? So let's see how can we check how many number of drivers are registered. So driver manager has a utility method called get drivers, so that you can come to know how many drivers are registered, right? If I run this code, if I rerun this code, you see some driver classes printing, right? Let me go, right? So there is a default driver which is registered com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver, right? So it's automatically registered. That is a feature of JDK 1.6. You don't need to do driver class data, class name, right? Class dot for name is not required, right? Class dot for name it's completely not required. So from JDK 1.6, right? Yeah, so that's how the driver manager works, and how we can manage the transaction management, right? So atomicity, right? Atomicity, SQL atomicity. So when you process the data, right, when you like, for example, money transfer, right? So if you send to some account, the money will first will be deducted from the source account, then it will be credited to the target account. If due to some reasons, if money is not credited to the client, the target account, then that complete transaction has to be reverted. So how we can manage the transaction using JDBC? So by default, connection whatever you execute it, right, every query will be committed. So we can manage the transactions by using set auto commit false. And if everything goes good, then you must do it explicit, right? Explicit connection dot commit. And if is there anything goes wrong inside your catch block, you should do connection dot rollback, right? Connection dot rollback. So this is how we do maintain the transaction, right? Transaction management in native JDBC, right? So first you set connection dot set auto commit false, connection dot set auto commit false. Then yeah, so your any query you execute it, the connection will not do an auto commit. So you have to do it explicitly. So that's how, if anything goes, I mean everything good goes, then we will commit. If any exception comes or any problem while executing our code, we will roll back that connection. So nothing can be performed, right? So this is how we do maintain atomicity transaction management, right? In the using. So this is all about JDBC, right? Nothing related to Spring. So this is there for decades, nothing new, right? If I just open this connection, no date. Okay, the new date 1996, right? 1996. This was written. Okay, 1996. This code was written, right? So it I think yeah. Okay, so this is there since 1996. So there is nothing new we are learning, right? So for decades we have this, right? So almost like 20 plus years this is there. 2006, 16, yeah, 24 years. Almost like 24 years we have this concept in the market. Okay, so this is how we do get the database. But there are some challenges, right? So actually this is a prerequisite, for this microservices. You must know how the normal native JDBC is working. Right? At least the fundamentals, how to open the connection, so the flow architecture, whatever we discussed now, right? So this must be, you must have some idea. So if you don't have an idea, then you must uh, have concentration here, because this is what is there already. So nothing new to Spring or nothing new to microservices, right? So the world is using for almost 24 years. So whatever we discussed, it's like completely a native concept, right? Yes. Now let's jump into Spring JDBs, right? So till now we learn anything, I mean nothing learned with respect to Spring. Now we're gonna use Spring JDBC. So when I say Spring JDBC, don't think that Spring people implemented the one more JDBC API. Nothing like that. Okay. So whatever the JDBC API we have in Java still remains. It still remains. But there are some things are going to be taken care by Spring, right? There are few things. There are few things are going to be taken care by Spring. Okay. So any questions till now? Whatever we discussed. Chintesh, Chupudi, Venkat, Jaga, Shiva.
No, sir. No.
This is fine. We know, right? This thing. So we are
Okay.
fine here.
You don't have any questions. Then I have a question.
Okay.
Do you ever write a code like this, driver manager dot get connection in any real time project?
No, we use pool.
Right? So even though we have this approach, okay, this is not a real-time approach, right? For learning purpose, we are doing driver manager that get connection. In real time, we don't do this, right? We implement a connection pooling concept, right? Connection pooling concept. So whatever we discuss now, it's still there. The only thing which is going to be changed here is the connection part, right? So the connection, for connection opening purpose, we'll never use driver manager dot get connection. So this is a very bad practice, right? In the real time, what we do use a connection pooling concept, right? Connection pooling concept. So the people who has knowledge on the application servers like WebLogic, WebSphere, right? So they might have some idea, right? So you must be uh, uh, you might be understanding, right? You might have seen that already, right? So yeah. Okay, so till now, whatever we discussed, still it's going to be the same thing, right? It's going to be your normal Java application itself. Nothing is going to change, right? Nothing is going to change. So this is your Java application, and in the down we have right. So in the down we have our, so let me put the side by side, right? So this is our Java application, and here we have our database, right? So database. So when you use driver manager that get connection, right? Driver manager that get connection. So you are opening some kind of right, some kind of connection, right? Some kind of connection you are going to open. So it's not that it's not going to be that way, right? So it's not going to be that way. It's like a physical connection we are opening in between the Java application and yeah, and your database. So it's like a physical connection. So using this connection, you send the request, right? Using this connection, you send the data, right? You send the data. That query will be executed by SQL engine. Finally, it generates some result, right? So result will be traveled back to your Java application. So this is what it's going to happen, right? So that connection is required for sure, no doubt at all. But it's not supposed to be in this format, not a driver manager that get connection. The problem is if you use a driver manager that get connection, right? If you use driver manager that get connection, for example, if you get, for example, if you get uh, like 1,000 requests, right? 1,000 requests from to your server. So each request is going to be processed, right? Each request is going to be processed by each request is going to be processed by each thread, right? Each thread. So one request, one thread, one request, one thread. So we already saw that way, right? 200 threads we have. Tomcat default has 200 threads. So each request is going to be processed by separate thread. So if you get 1,000 requests, so like how many number of physical connections we will be opening? 1,000 physical connections we are going to open. So driver manager dot get connection, right? So I think I use this paint itself. Yeah. So driver manager dot get connection. So it's something like this, right? Your Java application, you just put your database here. So if you just open, the approach is by using driver manager. So it's going to be, you get the request, you go and open the connection. You get the request, you go and open the connection. So if you get 1,000 requests, then you open 1,000 connections, right? This is not the correct way, right? Request. Yeah, request connection per thread, connection per request is completely a bad practice, right? It's completely a bad practice. So what should we do? How can we avoid this problem? So how can we overcome this connection per thread, or how can we come out of this connection per request, connection per thread, right? So how can we come out of that problem? So what we will do in our Java, there is a concept called data source, right? There is a concept called data source. It's again an interface. The servers has to implement or some other library, third-party libraries we have, right? Third-party libraries we have. So you have to create a data source instead of using driver manager dot connection. Driver manager dot connection. So this data source is a kind of connection pooling, right? Data source is a kind of connection pooling. So you need to provide some configuration, how many number of connections you want and what is the ideal times, right? So some configuration you have to provide. If you say, okay, I want 10 connections, you want like, first you start with 10, maximum 100 connections you want to create, like that. If you provide the configuration, right? while your application is up and running, or while you are creating this data source, right, there are 10 connections will be opened automatically, right? So there are 10 connections will automatically open. So that is the initial capacity. All these 10 connections are physical database connection to the database, right? So these 10 connections are always pointing to the database, right? So from your Java application, you're not supposed to call driver manager that get connection. You have to call data source dot get connection. What you have to do? You have to call data source dot get connection. So what will happen? You will get the connection, right? Data source dot get connection. You will get which connection you get, the connection which is present in the data source pool, right? So this is what we call it as connection pooling. Okay, in the real time, we'll use this. No driver manager. If somebody using driver manager, just ask them to remove, right? So driver manager is not supposed to be used. Driver manager is not supposed to be used. We have to use data source, right? So there are few servers which has a very good support, right, for this connection pool, connection management, like WebLogic, right? JBoss, right? WebLogic or JBoss or Glass Glassfish, okay, Glassfish. So they have very good UI integrations. Okay, Tomcat also has, but they have, I mean, they don't have much, I mean, good UI interactions. But these people, right? Yeah, especially the company who earn so much money just because of Java, IBM, WebSphere, they loot money like anything. Okay, so if WebSphere is the costliest server, right? They IBM earn money like anything on from Java. I mean, they might have invested also, but they are the like top ranker persons who earn the most of the money from Java out from Java, right? So they have so many tools, servers, version management tools, right? Before Git, I think some companies are using ClearCase, right? So everything is payable. They charge for Eclipse also. I hope like most of the people never hear. There is an IDE like Eclipse called RSA, RAD, right? Rational Software Application. So the abbreviation for this RSA is Rational Software Application. It is nothing but an Eclipse. For that you have to pay money to IBM. Okay, there is an IDE called RAD, Rational Application Development. Okay, it's just a simple Eclipse. For that you need to pay money. You need to take the license. Okay, so these people like any money like anything. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, we are not against to IBM or any other company. I'm just telling you the scenario. Okay. Yeah. So these servers has a good, very good connection pooling interaction. So you have to open that server browser, right? You just log into that server and you provide some parameters, right? Parameters. Your server itself will create a connection pool. So from your code, you have to do driver manager data source that get connection. You get the connection, you get the physical connection. So this server has a strong support on this connection pooling mechanism. If connection is idle for some time, they will close, right? So WebLogic itself will close that connection. There are so much configuration you can do. Not WebLogic, WebSphere. There's so many like so much control you're gonna get it by using this application server, by using this application server. Yeah. So if you use these servers connection pool management, right? If you use connection pool management through the server, then that process we call it as container managed connection pooling, right? Container managed connection pool. If the connection pool is managed by the server, like WebLogic, WebSphere and all, then we call that as container managed connection pool, right? Container managed connection pool. Yes. Okay. So this is one way, and another way is like Spring. In whenever we are using Spring, we don't use all these servers. We have some vendors, right? Vendors, third-party data source vendors. So like uh, Spring has one data source called data source implementation called driver manager data source, but it's like driver manager only. Don't use driver manager data source, right? Performance wise, it's not a good thing. It's recommended for local testing, So don't apply the code with the driver manager. But Apache has another good one, right? Basic data source, right? Basic data source. I don't remember the full name. So I think it's a basic data source. It's from Apache, right? Apache. Yeah, recently Spring started using one data source implementation called Hikari, right? Hikari data source. So all these are implementation classes for data source. So we don't need any server. You itself, as a developer, you itself you can configure this data source. As a developer, you itself you can configure this data source. So what will happen when you use this data source, right? So in Spring application code, you need to write some code, right? You need to write some code to create this data source. If it is a Spring Boot, right? Instead of you are writing the code, Spring itself will take care about it, right? So whenever we are using Spring Boot, right? Spring Boot connecting to the database. So the default data sources, Hikari connection point, Hikari data source, right? Hikari connection point, sometimes Hikari connection, right? So this process, right? This process is called application managed connection point. Okay, application managed connection point. So some companies will use container managed connection pool. Some companies will use application managed connection pool. Actually, few years back, like few days back, we used to have container managed connection pooling because it is so strong, right? You're gonna get so many benefits, but it's not free of cost. You have to pay some money. You have to take a license. At least you bought. You have to buy some license, right? So like these are from different vendors actually. WebLogic from Oracle bought WebLogic. Earlier it was from BEA, right? The company name is called BEA. Later Oracle bought that. So now we got WebLogic with Oracle. So JBoss it's from Red Hat, right? Red Hat. So this is also licensed version. Glassfish it's from Sun Microsystems. Nobody used Glassfish. Very rare. Yeah, WebSphere from IBM, right? I think this is little costly, right? Yeah, so these are like different vendors are having different servers, right? So all these servers earlier we used to use this container managed connection pooling. Now we are slowly migrating into Tomcat. We are completely avoiding this using these application servers, right? It's like fully Tomcat or Netty server, right? Open source server. We are we are we are going to, I mean, in our microservices we will be doing application managed connection, right? What we're going to do, application managed connection. Okay, so this is what is the real-time approach. So in the code you will never see driver manager get connection. You all the time you see data source dot get connection, data source dot get connection. And the data source can be created in two ways. One is container managed connection pooling, and another one is application managed container connection pooling. So if you use some server to manage this connection pooling, then we call that as container managed connection pooling. If you use this third-party vendor data source implementation, then we call it as application managed. In our microservices, we're going to use application managed connection, right? So going forward, no driver manager get connection. It's going to be data source dot get connection. Data source dot get connection. So with this, we are done with all JDBC concepts, and without, I mean, we still not stepped into Spring, right? All these things are there for so many years. So this is what it happens in the background. So there is a connection, right? You might be executing so many times, select star, update, right? Create query, dropping query, right? You might have been doing this for so many years, but actual visual. Like, some people would have been already knowing it, and some it should be new. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do it, right? Some interview question, right? Like how do you manage the connection pooling on microservices? You have to say application managed connection pooling. So we are using Hikari data source. That is the default data source. You don't need to configure anything extra. So when we use Spring Boot with JDBC or Spring Boot with data JPA, any database connectivity. So it's going to be with Hikari connection pool. So it's going to be application managed connection pooling, application managed connection pooling, and the production database credentials will be passing, right, as a dynamic properties file, right? We discussed that day, right, in our externalized configuration. We discussed, right, Java and jar some blah 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 blah, right? This is the standalone deployment. Standalone deployment. If you go for Docker, right? So actually, Docker is going to be managed by Kubernetes, right? Docker is going to be managed by Kubernetes. Kubernetes has a concept called config map, where we can put environment specific configuration. So actually, this is going to be done by the admins, right? Admins, the DevOps admins. So they will configure the production. They will configure the production credentials. So it's secure only, no problem, right? So we, like, as a developer, we will know what is dev or SIT, but once we deploy, right, even dev SIT also, it's a Docker Kubernetes orchestration will be there. So in the dev environment, in the config map, we will put development specific credentials. It is SIT production. So it's full of secure, like how earlier production support team doing a connection pool management, right? They know password, they know username password of production database, but they don't know how to write the query. So that's why it was safe. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So they know what is a production username password. They don't
Got
know
it.
how to write the query. So it's a safe. If any developer is knowing that production username password, it's a high risk, right? If manager is coming and telling you are not working properly, then he will show his anger in a different mode. Right? So
Yeah, we'll run one cron. That's it.
yeah, yeah, production support team knows what is the username password, but they don't know how to use that properly. So that's why we gave that, right? So yeah, the same concept here also. Production support team knows what is the production database username password, but they don't know how to play with that username password. If they play, it will say some legal issue will be there. Don't worry. If you know SQL query also, you're not supposed to do that, right? Due to some like legal issues will be there. While joining in your company, you might sign like 50 60 times. So somewhere in the microscope text they will write, okay. So for sure there might be some case will be filed up, right? Don't play with any production time. So so this is like a kind of interview question. How do you manage production credentials? We have like Docker Kubernetes. There we will put it, and there is a separate team who takes care about it. So they will provide. I mean, the details will be here. Our application will automatically take it from Kubernetes config map, and it connects to the database. So with this, we are done with the JDBC. How to get the connection, how to execute a query, and when we execute a query, what will happen, and how to, especially this one, right? The connection pooling. So it's not a driver manager. It's going to be the data source. Okay. Now let's jump into Spring JDBC. Few more minutes, like last theory, right? Why we need JDBC? Why we need Spring JDBC when we have JDBC, right? So we already have JDBC. Then what is the requirement? What is the requirement of Spring JDBC? Already there is a huge infrastructure invested on it, and the Spring is coming in between and saying that can you please use my library? Then you might ask, already have huge library. There are so many things I have to remember. Why should I remember again your things, right? So it's like you're gonna get benefited if you use Spring JDBC. It's again a JDBC API only, nothing changed. It's like same data source, get connection, create statement, prepare statement, set auto commit false, right? All are same only. There is nothing different. Result set, everything is same, but we don't directly work with the JDBC API, right? So when we use Spring JDBC, so we don't directly work with the JDBC API, right? So you never see a code like connection in JDBC, Spring JDBC. Okay, you never see a code like a statement or prepared statement. Okay, and you never see a code like a result set. If you see anywhere, then you really get surprised how that guy got like went into this much lower level, right? So it's not required, you no need to go, right? So so we will never see these concepts, right? Whatever we learn, those will be used. Like how we are doing a Spring Boot MVC, we are not writing a servlet, right? We are not writing a servlet, we are not doing any configuration, but still the underlying architecture is servlet, right? Servlet and the same configuration, right? It's no exception for Spring JDBC or Spring Boot JDBC. So I'll mark this boot in the like optional model, right? So Spring JDBC or Spring Boot JDBC. So the underlying architecture is still same, but we will never use these components. We use a different component, right? Different component called JDBC template, right? JDBC template. So this class has so many methods, right? This class has so many methods, and and this takes care about opening connection, closing connection, right? Any checked exception converting into unchecked exception. So right, so JDBC template has so many utility methods, so many utility methods. So we're gonna use JDBC template methods, right? We're not going to do connection statement result set. We're gonna do JDBC template, right? So if you use Spring JDBC in your application, what is the benefit you're gonna get, right? So look at this actions, whatever we are doing for now JDBC, defining connection parameter, opening connection, specifying the SQL statement, declaring parameters, right? Where condition, where name equals to, so that is what is a parameter. You have to provide the parameter, preparing and executing the query, right? And results at while rs dot next you have to do inside that while loop, whatever we are doing, right? Extracting data, and if is there any exception comes, that has to be handled, right? Handling transaction, right? And closing the connection, closing the statement, and closing the results, right? So these many actions we are doing. Actually, if you don't use Spring JDBC, excuse me, if you don't use Spring JDBC, then you have to do it by yourself. Everything you have to do it. Okay, opening connection, closing connection, preparing query, executing query, extracting the data, everything you have to do, right? When you use Spring JDBC, right? Spring JDBC will help us in few places, right? For example, opening connection, driver manager dot get connection or data source dot get connection, you will never do. Okay, so Spring is going to take, but you providing connection parameters, you have to say where is the database is running, right? What is the username of the database and what is the password of the database, that you have to specify. That is for sure. But you no need to you no need to open the connections. The connection opening is going to be taken care by JDBC. Sorry, Spring. Okay, so writing the query, it's you have to do. Writing the query you have to do, and if is there any parameters has to be passed in the query, right? For example, where condition and condition, right? Where select mobile, where mobile ID, select mobile, where mobile name, right? So some where condition and condition, those parameters you have to provide, right? Like Spring will prepare that query. Spring will prepare that query and execute that query, and Spring will check that while rs dot next. Spring is going to take care. But inside that while rs dot next, right? Inside while the rs dot next, so we can do a comparison here, right? So opening the connection, right? Opening the connection, this won't be there. Creating statement, right? These two statement won't be there. Execute query. These three things are going to be taken care by Spring. You have to provide these parameters, and you need to provide username, password, and query. That is what you need to do, right? And while rs.next also, this entire part is going to be taken care by Spring. So inside this while loop, right? It's actually a business logic, right? What you're gonna do with the result, it's up to you, that you have to specify, right? What you're gonna do with the result, that you have to specify. Is there any exception occurred while processing? That checked exception, SQL exception is a checked exception. That checked exception will be converted into unchecked exception. And transaction management also, Spring JDBC will take care about it. And it also takes care about closing the connection. It is opening the connection, so it will also close the connection, right? So it opens the connection and it closes the connection. And connection management, is going to be fully taken care by Spring. So as a developer, you need to just do 4 steps. So Spring will do 1, 2, 3, 3, 5, 6, 7, right? I think 6, 3, 3, 6. So 6 tasks are going to be taken care by Spring. Like 4 tasks are going to be taken care by developer, right? So it's like it's going to be pretty fast, right? Pretty fast. And sometimes it's good to use Spring JDBC. Why? Because we cannot trust the developer. Always he will close the connection. There is no guarantee. If you don't close the connection, then there should be production outage. So it's better to rely on the framework instead of relying on the developer, right? So that is why most of the times we go for framework, right? Less code, more functionality, right? And more standardized code, right? More standardized code we're gonna use in our project if you use framework. That is the one of the reason why the world is moving towards frameworks, right? So Spring is going to perform more number of tasks, like more like when we compare with developer. Okay. So this is what is a benefit, right? This is what is a benefit. Yeah. So there are 4 major packages we have in the Spring JDBC called core, where we will have JDBC and named parameter JDBC class, and the data source management configuration, right? Data source related code is present inside as ORG Spring Framework JDBC data source package, and any mapping, right, or result to mapping is present inside object, and some utility classes are there converting SQL exceptions into unchecked exception, right? So those are present inside support package. Right? Mainly 4 packages: core, data source, object, support. You don't need to remember this for idea and everything. Okay, you don't need to remember this, but you must remember this, right? This what is the benefit you're gonna get. If you don't know the benefit, then you can't answer why you are using Spring JDBC, right? So you must know benefit why you are using Spring JDBC. But this package level things you don't need to remember just for your idea and things, right? So you don't need to remember core, data source, object, support, but just for idea, right? So there are mainly four modules are present in the Spring JDBC core. So where it's going to have the main class JDBC template, named parameter JDBC template, and data source will deal with data source related stuff. Object will deal with the object mapping, and support will deal with the exception, converting checked exception into. But most of the times we will be using JDBC template. Sometimes we will use named parameter JDBC template, right? So if you understood JDBC template, named JDBC template is nothing. It's just a piece of cake. Like understanding about named JDBC template is just a piece of chocolate cake, right? So that much easy. Okay. So this is all about theory, right? So let's jump into the exam, right? So one small thing I just want you to know, right? If it is a native Spring JDBC, the material is going to present inside Spring.io projects Spring framework. Okay, Spring.io project Spring framework. Go to the documentation. There is a section called data access, right? Yeah, so data access. So here we're gonna get the details about JDBC. Here we're gonna get details about JDBC. So there is a huge information is available. JDBC one out of them, right? JDBC data access with JDBC, right? So there is some legacy support was there. Earlier it was like Spring DAO support, something was there. But yeah, for dealing with the database, right? So like I just copy pasted this thing, right? Who does what? Spring does what and developer does what, right? So most of the things are I will be taking from this main reference, right? Documentation only. So I recommend you to refer the same thing, right? So it will be latest and updated. So don't stick to any material, including my material. So just a quick refresh purpose, you can use this at any interview point of view or any quick refresh, right? How like, things will be covered like that, you can use it. But it is highly recommended to refer Spring official documentation that will be updated and which is going to have the latest information, right? So even you when you compare my most of the material, it's from Spring official documentation. Most of the material from Spring official documentation. Okay. So yeah, see, choosing like four package hierarchy, core, JDBC, object support, and what you want to choose, right? JDBC template is enough, right? So he says simple JDBC, simple name parameter JDBC template. So for us, JDBC template is far enough. Sometimes we go for named parameter JDBC, named parameter JDBC. Okay, if it is a native Spring application, it is your responsibility of creating data source, right? If it is a native, not Spring Boot, if it is a native Spring application, then you have to manage the dependencies. First thing is you have to add the Spring JDBC dependencies. You have to add the Spring JDBC dependencies, right? The Spring context, Spring JDBC, right? So these dependencies you have to add. Then you have to create a data source also. What data source we are creating? Driver manager data source. It's from Spring, right? So it's inbuilt with Spring. Don't use driver manager. Wherever you see driver manager, skip using that. It's not suitable for multi-threaded environment. So this is for single-threaded environment. It's suitable. It can be a native JDBC driver manager or Spring JDBC driver manager data source. Don't use, just for demo purpose. I'm showing this, right? Anyway, we are not going to use this application. We are going to use Spring Boot JDBC, right? We will be writing the code in Spring Boot JDBC, not in Spring JDBC. For your idea, I'm just showing this code, okay? So you have to create the data source. You have to create the JDBC template, right? You have to load the properties file. You have to load the properties file, right? Property source. So if it is a Spring Boot JDBC, you don't need to do anything. It is just providing the configuration. It's just matter of providing the configuration in application.properties file or in application.yaml file. Just 4 parameters: data source URL, data source username, data source password, data source driver class name, right? Even driver class name is optional. Only 3 parameters: URL, username, password. URL, username, password. That's it, right? So there is one default data source is created. I already told, right? Hikari connection pool data source. That data source will be, right? That data source will be injected into JDBC template. So this entire configuration, reading the properties file configuration, creating the data source, creating the JDBC template, everything is going to be taken care by Spring Boot. You directly start using the JDBC template, right? You just simply jump into repository, auto wire JDBC template. Just let me open configuration. If there is no configuration, this is my model class. This is my Spring Boot application. You see, I'm not creating any JDBC template. I'm not creating any data source, right? That is the benefit of Spring Boot. So the difference between Spring JDBC, Spring Boot JDBC. If it is Spring JDBC, then you have to create data source. You have to create JDBC template. If it is Spring Boot JDBC, right? Yeah. First of all, you have to load the properties, right? You have to create the data source. You have to create the JDBC template. If it is Spring Boot JDBC, you don't need to do anything. It's just matter of providing configuration in application.properties. See, driver class also not required. Just say username, URL, password. That's it. There is a data source will be created automatically, and JDBC template will be created automatically. You just start using that directly. The things will work as expected, right? So that is what is the Spring Boot JDBC auto configuration. So this is a part of data source auto configuration, right? So there is one jar we already written into, right? So just open that. So there is a separate section called JDBC, right? There is a separate section called data source, right? Data source. Are you able to see the data source? Auto configure GMS security web tools. Where is the data source? Data. I think it's part of data. Repository node DAO. Somewhere.
Data JDBC can.
Oh, data JDBC. Yeah. Yeah. JDBC. Have this one also. So somewhere we will have the data source auto configurer. Let me open that. So that will take care about Right? Data source auto configure. It's part of auto configure.jdbc. Auto configure dot jdbc. Oh, there is a separate package jdbc. Uh, D J yeah jdbc. Right? Data source auto configuration class will automatically create one data source, which is Hikari connection pool data source, right? Hikari connection pool data source. So it loads the data source properties, right? It loads the data source properties automatically. The driver class name, URL, everything will be loaded, and it internally creates the data source, right? So if you open all these classes, somewhere you see the Hikari connection pool, right? So default it is Hikari connection pool data source, right? So yes. So yeah, Hikari, right? Hikari. So automatically Hikari data source will be created. Hikari data source will be created. Okay. So you no need to do anything. It is just a matter of providing these three properties in the application.properties file. Okay. So we're gonna call a couple of methods, something like this. But anyway, we will look into them tomorrow. So no more connection, no more statement, no more prepare statement, no more result set, no more SQL exception, right? It's going forward. It will be JDBC template of calling some method and providing three parameters in application.properties, right? So it's pretty easy. Like playing with JDBC with Spring Boot is pretty easy, right? So and it's like so much community support we have, right? There are so many examples are there, so many tutorials are there. So there's huge community support and very good documentation is available from Spring. So that is one reason why the world is slowly adapting Spring JDBC. So we will quickly close this, right? Our target is not Spring JDBC, learning Spring JDBC. It's pretty easy, it's a small topic. We will spend more time on data JDBC. Okay, so this is the project we're gonna spend more time. Like how we learn MVC in and out, right? So like that we will learn bring data JPA also. Okay, so data JPA in and out. Okay, it's going to be bring data JPA. So we will spend more time when we compare with JDBC. So JDBC, once we saw all these examples, we will create one simple service with the JDBC integration, then we will close it like maximum 3 days. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow, then we will be coming out of JDBC, but we will spend good amount of time in Spring data. Any questions before we went?
Sunil,
Yeah.
what will be the default connection size for this Hikari data source?
We need to it's one. You need to open that connection pool configuration. So there must be some properties file. Okay. Uh, yeah, we need to open that Hikari default connection. We need to. So it's better to go to documentation. The Hikari data source default pool source. I think it's one. Default is one, right? You just refer the documentation. If you want to override the configuration, you can. So
Default is 10.
default is 10. Yeah. Default is 10. I thought it's one, but it's 10. Yeah, just go through the documentation. You'll get more details. Okay. So, Hikari documentation. So you get better idea. It's from Hikari CP. Okay. So you want just see that. Yeah, we can override that in our application that properties file and application that YAML. Yes, you can do it. From JavaScript dependencies. Okay, fine. Okay, so yeah, you just refer this documentation, you get better idea. It's still loading. Okay, so tomorrow we will see a couple of examples. Then we will write one microservice, right? One more microservice we will be starting tomorrow. How to configure service? It's a simple service, right? Just we have one.
Sunil, just one small clarification. Is there any difference between application.property or application.yml file? Like any kind of difference, or
No,
it is same?
both will be same. There is no difference. Yeah,
No difference, huh?
it's up to you what you wanna use. Both are same. I told right. The people who are from Java background feel comfortable using properties file. The people who has background like DevOps or some kind of configuration, right? So they feel comfortable in writing YAML file. So it supports both. There is no difference. But Spring has good support for properties file. So YAML customization is little difficult when we compare with the application background, right? So at property source, we have to load a different properties file, but we don't have at YAML source, right? So we have to write some code to get that different YAML file name. So how can we load JDBC.properties file? Just now we saw right at property source, but we don't have at YAML source, right? So at property source only works for properties. It won't work for at YAML configuration. So this we already discussed. Go to externalize the configuration day. You just check that. Okay, but both are same. A quick answer: both are same. There is no difference, no performance difference. There is completely both are same. Two different concepts. It's up to you what to use, right?
Okay. Okay. No, because somewhere I saw there was one question whether like difference between properties and YML.
No, I'm not able to hear. Your voice is too low.
No, why I asked like there was one question actually somewhere I see like what is the difference between that. So even though I was thinking like there is no difference, but still it was like mentioned that somewhere like interview question people can ask this thing. So that's why I
It's up to you. What to use, it's up to you. What you feel comfortable. Until unless some standard, like in your company, like in your project, some decision taken, like all should be properties configuration or all should be YAML configuration. Until unless there is a kind of specification, you can go ahead and use anything which one you feel comfortable. So as we are developers, we feel comfortable with properties, and Spring has good support for properties. Right? It's fine. It's anything can be used. No difference at all. Okay.
Yeah, Sunil, I have one question. Actually, you said Ikari database data source it will be created, right?
Mhm.
So, for example, in the WebLogic, any other servers, when we are deploying this application, at the time of deployment, this Ikari data source will be created. Because in traditional
Yeah.
approach, we will create a data source, we'll connect to the any one of the server,
Mhm.
and we will create data source and we'll map into our applications.
This one, right? The container.
Yes. For
So
example,
here you use JNDI approach, JNDI Java naming directory, right? JNDI
correct.
approach, and here we have WebLogic data source. Yeah, if you deploy Spring Boot application on WebLogic or somewhere, so you no need to do this. This entire concept will be skipped. It's going to be Ikari. By default, it's Ikari.
Okay. So while deploying Spring application, the Ikari data source will be created in a
Yes,
respect to the servers.
yes. Whatever the server, it can be
So
Tomcat
that
or
there
whatever.
is no need of manual intervention.
Yes, nothing required.
Okay.
Because that is what is the secret behind this microservices individual deployment, right? So once you
Yeah.
create any Docker image, so you will not do any changes. It's going to be you copy that image and just run, right? Just copy the image and run. So so we don't want to do any changes. It's like should run completely an independent way, right? So then only it's called microservice. If you do any changes, then it will not be called as a microservice.
Yeah. Okay.
Any more questions? We covered a lot today, right? Too much information. It's like huge. Okay. Okay, guys. Thank you. Sorry, 10 minutes late today. Okay. See you tomorrow at same time, sharp 8:50. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, team.
Thank you, Sunil. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.